What's up, magician fans? Today we're talking about episode 3, Divine Elimination, and we have a very special guest. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
What is this choice?
It was our guest's choice, which you can ask about in a second. What's up, fans of The Magicians? Today we're talking about episode 3, Divine Elimination, which is a very amusing title once we actually get to what that is. My name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D. Lane. I'm joined by my awesome co-host.
Hi, I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow, and that's MSADRINSNOW.
And we have a very special guest with us via Skype today. We have none other than the awesome Penny, Arjun Gupta.
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
Woo! Welcome.
So let's dive into this music choice, huh?
Yeah.
Adrian was a little surprised by you. So why this song?
It's just a song that I actually was blasting this morning as I went to go work out, and it felt appropriate because the lyrics are "Where are you now?" which felt like a very appropriate moment based on this episode.
That's fair. That's
Absolutely.
True. So true.
So we'll just kind of talk about the episode and also have questions for you. So feel free to chime in at any moment if something comes up and you're like, hey, wait, this thing happened or whatever.
Sure.
So at the beginning, we start off, we have Elliot and the squad. We've been calling them the squad, or at least I have. And then Elliot's kind of, and all of them are like, let's revel in our magistry. And but Elliot starts getting some visions and is kind of paranoid. And now, Adrian, did you figure out what it was right away?
Yeah, that he sat down.
You knew it was a chair?
Yeah. I figured it wouldn't be the wine. That would be a little too convenient because that's kind of a common thing. But yeah, I figured it was the chairs.
Yeah. But then we get Quentin, who figures out that there's a curse, but obviously, you know, doesn't figure out what it is exactly soon enough.
No.
And sits down. And then I wrote down, poor Penny. Because you figure it out real fast.
Yeah. I mean, it's another instance of Penny being stuck in a group of idiots and having to be the adult that he doesn't, I don't know that he really wants to be, but keeps getting thrust into this role.
Yeah.
Yep, he seems like the only sane one.
Well, I mean, it starts. I mean, he doesn't. He's kind of just like, what are we doing here? Why are we sitting on thrones? We got a beast that's still attacking us. Are we serious right now?
Yeah.
Then we jump over to Julia and Marlena with the fox trap, and definitely no trust for Martin. What was it like working with Martin? I didn't write down his name, but that actor.
Charles.
Yes,
Measure.
there we go.
Charles is great, man. Yeah, I mean, I finally had one scene. Well, we actually had a few scenes together because we had the big battle that comes up later in the episode. But I had one of my first few scenes with Julia throughout this. 2 scenes, actually. One where I'd pop in. It used to be that every time we looked on the schedule, we saw Julia. It was like no one was working, and then it was Stella, and then every other day is the rest of us. So it was a strange week that I got to work with Stella, but it was like lovely as well to finally do a scene with her. That scene was fun because I mean Charles is a great guy. He's a vet when it comes to the genre sort of TV. He did a lot. He did all his own stunts. Maybe not all of them, but he did a lot of his own stunts.
Oh, wow.
Didn't get thrown into the rock, but, he flew back himself. He does flips. He's quite the dude.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Nice.
Actually, speaking of stunts, do you try to do as many of your own stunts, or do they kind of restrict you, or what?
Yeah. No, I mean, I fight to do all of them, and I'm never allowed to do most of them.
Aww.
Yeah.
There's a fun one in episode 5 that I get to do some wire work throughout the season, which was really fun, and that got to be me. But they're very protective of us, which I guess I appreciate. But
they're
I want to
looking
try
out.
some shit sometimes.
Yeah. Sure.
They're just looking out for you.
Yeah. Insurance.
Yeah.
Insurance.
And then you and Fenton, Elliot's wife, are trying to figure out I wrote Fen. Fern? Fen.
Fen.
Fen, thank you. I wrote Fen. Yeah, and you guys are trying to figure it out. What's it like working with her? Because she's been kind of a character that's gotten a little bit more screen time this season.
Yeah, I mean, Brittany had a tough job because, there was a different actress that played Fen at the end of last season, and then she went on to do something else. And we were fortunate that Brittany came in because Brittany's been a lovely addition to the cast. But that's always tough when you're coming in and, someone else has made some choices that you're kind of stuck with. But not that they're bad choices, but just that like you're a little bit limited. But she's done. Yeah, she kind of came in and she just kind of fit in right with our vibe, and Fen becomes a pretty important character throughout the season, mainly to Elliot. But the foil that she allows for Elliot's character is really lovely.
Nice. And then if any of you are watching live, feel free to join in the chat if you have any questions for Arjun, and we'll pass those on to him. And if you guys are watching this later, please comment down below what you thought of the episode. We'd love to hear from you. We're fans just like you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. And you were excellent on Twitter. Good job, by the way, Arjun, of like talking with the fans. Is that tricky, live tweeting with people?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm fortunate. I have to watch the episode beforehand because I'm buried into the computer. Like I try to get to everyone. So if I was watching for the first time while I was tweeting, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I've actually seen through 10 actually, which is lovely. I'm saying lovely a lot tonight, which is not normal for me. But something about this.
It's
something
all right.
about this, midnight, dimly lit office I'm in right now is bringing it out.
That's all right. A couple people in the chat, and actually myself too, they commented that they didn't realize it was a different actress, so I guess she's doing a good job of kind of portraying her enough that everyone's kind of like, oh, okay.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Oh, but just the other thing about tweeting that's been fun is I grew up in theater. Theater is my home, and so live tweetings have been kind of this. I was surprised to find out that it was a facsimile almost of that immediate interaction between audience and artist that you get in theater. It's not the same, obviously, at all, because you can't read them and then shift with the audience like you can in theater. But it is still nice to feel the reaction as it's happening.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good point. Then we have Marlena. I wrote down Marina. I don't know why, for some reason I keep wanting to call her that name. Marina. I wrote down once more with feeling because she was doing it wrong in musical. Anybody? No, okay.
No,
just me.
I get it. I get it.
And then Martin and Julia are there. He takes her to the park and he's like, no, we're just gonna hang out here because Fox is gonna sense you. And but then our bait leaves. Would you have stayed, Adrian? You'd be all, peace out, I'm done.
No, I wouldn't have even done the spell. I wouldn't have been about that life because sorry, he slaughtered a bunch of people and then raped Julia. I'm not gonna tangle with that man. But I guess I understand her decision to help, and I felt really.
I mean, let's not sleep at that. That's a noble move.
That's an incredibly noble move. Oh, for sure.
I'd be all peace
but
out.
I definitely couldn't have done it. Like, I definitely don't think I would want to get wrapped up in that.
And then we have the quick little bit. We have Margot and Quentin and the Keiko Demon. And I was like, what a waste when they're all fighting each other. I was like, oh, that's so short. You get one shot. And then Penny comes in and tries to stop them, but not.
I'm pretty successfully at stuff. I get to shoot somebody in the ass, which was definitely one of my favorite moments in the entire season.
Yes.
Yeah. How was shooting that overall? Like, what was it?
It was really technical, obviously, because I'm not shooting anyone in the ass.
Exactly.
But it was still really fun. We had these crazy. Ellie Smolkin, who's our DP, had to do some. We do a lot of stuff that's practical. So the only part of that was VFX was the smoke above us, which obviously was a big part, but a lot of the light stuff that was happening like practically in Ellie and his camera department and the electric department and those rigging guys. They did a great job coming up with, creative ideas of how that like flash of light could happen, and then me and Jason got to throw ourselves back, and sadly there was some improv stuff that me and Jason did after he makes his stupid line of no, as Quentin, not as like what the line's actually stupid, but the stupid line of you could have shot her in the karate. It's right there. We had some fun improv. So we had a really good time. I mean, it's hard not to have fun with a scene like that, to be honest.
Now I'm blanking on the moment right now, but someone in the chat room asked, why didn't Penny get a demon?
I did get a Keiko demon.
Okay.
I released my Keiko demon.
Yeah, he does do it. So chat room guys, come on, he used it too.
Listen, I don't fault anybody for missing shit during this episode. This episode was packed with
a lot of
stuff. There was a lot.
This was a huge. When we all read the script, we were just like, "Whoa, this is a big one." Because obviously, if you've seen the episode, you know where it ends.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of. I thought it was a really risky choice, to be honest. I thought it was a really risky choice to have this big, like, first act to be all about this throne thing. But it turned out to be such this lovely, lighthearted kind of comedy and like funny piece to then really kind of lull you into a false sense of security before,
the big
people die.
Yeah, and
it was comedic.
It.
Yeah,
It was
funny.
a nice kind of just comedic touch, and we kind of already knew that seed was planted from the episode before. So to have it touched on now, that would be the thing that would stop them from getting to where they need to get to with the Beast. And in terms of timing out with them catching Reynard at the exact same time, I think it makes sense overall in the story. Yeah.
No, sure. Yeah.
Then we also, interesting in the chat, I don't know the first name, but we have McAllen says he's part of the effects team, and he says, Arjun, he follows your feed to get the audience feedback too, and he's working on the effects for the finale right now, and it's crunch time, lots of late nights, but seeing great reactions make the hard work worthwhile. Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys...
Shouts to those guys.
Do you get to interact much with any of the posts? I mean, not normally, but is there any sort of like, hey, how's it coming along? Or
yeah, I mean, I made it a point to like try to at least shake hands with everyone that works the show in some way and capacity. In post in LA, I've touched base with as many people as I can. We've switched up a few of our posts from who we were last year, so and some of that I gotta be honest, some of that I don't know. But everyone in Vancouver I know very intimately. And most of the people in LA I've at least tried to say hello with, because to me we're all in this shit together. It takes a huge village to make this. So yeah, it's really important to me to meet everybody.
That's very cool. Then we have Julia Martin, and why, because or how they're gonna get Renard is, why don't you follow the bait home? Oh, that was just so creepy. And he's like, I knew. But then Renard is there, which I like how Marina, I was going to say it wrong again. I like how Marina locks herself in. And he's like, so you just locked us together in here. And you're like, oh, creepy.
How good is my boy Mac Aston, man, as Reynard?
Oh, God. So crazy.
What's crazy about that is Mackenzie Aston is quite literally the sweetest, nicest human being you will ever meet. I mean, absolutely, hands down, a gem of a human being. And I just love what he's doing with Reynard. It's like, knowing him and who he really is and watching this happen is even more fun for me.
It makes sense though, because when you first meet his character, I'm like, oh, I really like him and I really want to trust him, and like he's good, but then shit happens.
Richard.
Yeah, when you first met his character, thank you, back in season 1, and so I think that's a good testament of his acting, that like just what he's done and how he carries himself and the character and the writing itself, because then you're just like, oh, he's creepy. You can just see him and you're like, oh, skin crawl, run away.
Yeah, I think it's kind of nice, because I think if they had picked an actor who's kind of known for being a creep, then that's kind of overrides everything else. Am I wrong? Am I crazy for thinking that? Yeah. But when you pick somebody who is kind of like in real life a nice guy, and is probably played majority of the time nice guys in his life, having them do that flip and that switch, I don't know, it's still like just as like cringeworthy, but it doesn't make you immediately completely write them off. I feel like maybe I could be wrong.
No, I think it's good. That is something unfortunate sometimes when an actor has played a bad character before, or if they constantly play like the bad guy or bad girl, then when you see them again, you're just kind of like, well, they're probably going to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this guy didn't expect that.
It's a nice twist. And then watching him like play with her finger before he eats it, it just, ugh. But a great choice. I hope that was like his own personal choice because it was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Arjun, we have a question from the chat. They'd like to. James says he'd like to know how it's different for you to play Penny now as opposed to last season. And he said it seems like your Penny's in a different place emotionally and personally from last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start with that latter part. Yes, Penny is, and that was important to me. When it was really important to me to honor the trauma of losing your hands, and then also the trauma of that, you know, his tough guy veneer gets pierced pretty sharply by that, you know, and I think that it was important for me to show just how terrifying the Beast is, you know. I think that the Beast is still the through line through these first 3 episodes of what's driving these characters. I mean, obviously Penny also was trying to get his hands fixed, but in order to save his life from the Beast, because you know, this is a life or death situation. So you are starting to see, hopefully, Penny being in different lights, and you know, Penny being reliant on people, and you're basically seeing Penny in a more vulnerable space than he's ever been, and he's not comfortable with it, and I don't think he knows how to handle it, and so it's coming out in you know, a Jackson Pollock sort of way, you know what I mean? At least that was what I was aiming for with my crafting of it through the first 3 episodes. You see more of Penny start to settle back in, but yes, he's a changed person. You know, he has to be based on what happens. But for me personally, you know, coming into the second season entirely has just been really fun and liberating. I think, you know, through the first season, you know, all of us were experienced, but none of us had been series regulars like this on a TV show. And I think that, you know, the show itself was a first season show. Like your second season, you're not rookies anymore. Yeah. And, you know, even just the little stuff of knowing Vancouver, knowing your routine in Vancouver, knowing the people, because we were blessed to have most of our crew come back. All that stuff kind of came back, and it just like felt more seamless. We all felt a little bit more, just could play a little bit more. And then we as an ensemble, we all knew each other another year better, so our chemistry was even deeper. So it was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Actually, kind of backing off that, Helena in the chat asked, she said, I'd imagine the hand tutting's hard enough. Was it extra difficult to do the uncontrollable version?
You know, actually, no, because we just choreographed that even more specifically. That was still just as choreographed. The first, actually, and the 4th episode as well, it's a beautiful opportunity for me to get to play with some like physical acting. You get to see a lot of that in the 3rd, you know, with the crossbow and all of the stuff that happens. And in the next episode, you're going to see a lot more actually. And so that's just been like a really fun opportunity for me to kind of like practice that and show what I can do from that standpoint. So no, the tutting is pretty difficult to begin with, and having it being uncontrolled is, yes, there are more elements, and you know, there's more to practice, but it's still just as choreographed. And you know, again, I'm going to take the opportunity to shout to Paul Becker and Kevin Lee, our amazing choreographers and teachers that are with us step by step.
Very cool. Yeah, no, the tutting, we've all commented on how this season has had even more of it, so it's been awesome to watch.
Well, it was also cool that they took, you know, and this goes to show the breadth of talent that is on this show. When our designers, you know, go back and they're like, how can we add to the show? And so Paul and Kevin, you know, like, okay, we're in Fillory now, so you know, the tutting should feel different now that we're in Fillory, because now we're at the home of magic, so is tutting going to be different? And so you're seeing more extravagant, you're seeing more what's the word where it's more pieces to the thing. There's like it's just more articulate. No.
Elaborate.
Thank you, elaborate. Thank you, more elaborate, and more magical. Hopefully, tutting.
Yeah. Is it easier now after doing the first season, the tutting? Has it coming more naturally? For you
yes
and the rest
no.
of the cast? Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
I said for you and the rest of the cast.
Well, I won't speak for the rest of the cast. Everyone has a different relationship with tutting. If you have the pleasure to talk to Summer, she'll have a very different reaction than I do. Penny doesn't tut a lot, to be honest. He never really has, but they've been really good. I played violin since I was 3, and so Kevin and Paul have been really good to choreograph according to my strengths. And as they've learned, they know, okay, he does this better, so let's choreograph within this in mind. So it naturally does get easier because they're making it easier for us.
Nice. Well, that's very cool. It's a great idea on their part. And then we get to probably one of the funniest, like, crazy scenes in the episode. Well, a crazy bit in the episode is when Penny and Fen versus the squad with the different shots of the potassium chloride and the adrenaline. And I just loved your kind of like super high energy, like, okay, this is the plan and this is what we're going to do. That was just, how fun was that scene to do of like trying to get that done?
It was the best. So fun. And John Scott, who directed this episode, did he created such a beautiful environment that day. And actually every day. He had a really tough episode. John Scott had a tough episode, and he came in and he was wonderful. But this day was just like the way they filmed it, the way they blocked it, we got to get a really organic flow into it. He had a really specific plan for what he wanted, so we just got to play, and that scene is so fun, and it's really fun to watch too. We had a blast.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of physical comedy, which is always, I think, like a gift to give to actors when they can just kind of do nonstop physical comedy with other actors and with themselves, even with like Margot sticking herself with the pen and that kind of stuff, I find pleasure in watching that. And
it felt like theater for us, you know? And a good majority of us in that on that show, especially, actually the 3 guys both came from theater, Hale, Jason, and I. So that was really just a lot of fun. And then one of my improv lines, actually, this is that's what I was planning. That actually that actually got to stick in, which was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, that was so fun of everyone just trying to stab each other and like, wait, we need to get the adrenaline, or if we're gonna get that in time, but everyone is okay. And then Alice let her Keiko demon go because she didn't want to keep it and felt it moving. And you're like, oh, another one wasted.
Yep.
Man, that was frustrating. Were you frustrated at all finding out all these like awesome?
No, I wasn't.
No?
The moment from episode 2 when he said, you only get one try, I was like, well, that's not going to go well. And then when they all ended up getting possessed, I was like, oh yeah, that's probably going to be the first thing that goes. Gotcha. So I wasn't surprised. But going off of my prediction from last week, I kind of already anticipated that things were going to go awry. So yeah.
And then we have we kind of talked about it a little bit, but we have the meat of the scene, pun intended, with Renard and Marina. I like how she gave him attitude. Yeah, it's like, no, at least she kind of held out to the end as much as she could. But the cat, I knew it. I was like, he's gonna kill the cat.
So
sort of.
I was sitting next to my black cat with her blue collar. I was watching that and I was like, oh man, last year it was the rabbit, this year it's the cat. Can I get a year? And cancer puppy. Can I get a year without a dead animal?
Cat was and this was even more visceral, like nasty.
Yeah, that was, I'm sure the VFX people added to it, but that cat, the Inside Out cat, was a prop.
Yeah.
That was not VFX. That was a.
I know. It was
Pat
so
O'Brien. If you're watching this and your amazing team, shouts.
Oh my god! And then when it's sitting in her lap and you could hear it meowing and you can see it breathing still.
And the heartbeat. That was so gross.
That's very good.
Yeah, excellent.
I was actually watching this episode with my mom, and she was not pleased during that part. She was like, "Oh, I don't want to. Arjun, And I'm sitting there, I'm tweeting. I didn't even know what was going on. I was just like, what? Oh yeah, Ma, you're not gonna like that.
Yeah, you know, that whole point, that time with him and Marina, with Reynard and Marina, was just. It's something that the show does really well. It does that gruesomeness without it being kind of Game of Thrones gruesomeness, where it's to the point where you're like, this is just too much. Like it's, I can still watch and be uncomfortable with it, but still, like, I'm not gonna, you know, there isn't a giant article about it the next day about being like, that was just too much. Like, okay, that's
the cat.
Well, I mean, in terms of like how Game of Thrones.
Yes. Sorry.
The violence gets so extreme. So, not to say that it's good, but I do appreciate that there is a kind of like understanding of people's limits when it comes to television violence. Well, to a certain extent.
I'd also say any pet owner is also just cringing there
too.
Oh
yeah, man. This is no fun.
But then we have, that's when Marty. Oh, sorry.
If you're gonna talk about, though, I mean, I think that's what the truth is and what they're trying to do. And hopefully we succeed at it. Is that, you know, that there's real darkness out there, you know, in art is, and so you have these fairly innocent people trying to navigate a world. I mean, these 6 characters are children, you know, for all intents and purposes, they are children, and just the way that most, you know, in their 23 to 28-year-olds are still children, and you know, I'm barely outside of that range. These are innocent people trying to walk in a world that has a ton of darkness, and so letting Reynard go there is really is a big risk. It is a big risk for TV, but I think an important one.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, it in terms of what he did to Julia and how that plays into her quest to get him now, and how that also plays into, you know, the squad's quest to get the beast, how that ends up coming to a head. And I can't say that I blame Julia for like grabbing after you, you know, or I can't.
No,
it's just like a conflicting thing, because I want her to get her vengeance, but I also want the group to get the beast, and it's like I just wish.
I mean, it's a strange thing, because you have vengeance and hopefully righting a wrong, right? That's the emotional feeling behind Julia's quest, and for us, it's survival, which is different, you know. This is like when you're watching, you know, Planet Earth, and you're seeing, you know, the snake trying to attack the mouse or whatever. That's what we are with the beast, or whoever's who in that analogy. I lost it entirely. But with Julia, it's so much more emotional. Like, you know, it's hard not to root for her, in, you know what I mean? And for me, and I'm in the show, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you know, the beast kills Penny. I don't have a job anymore, so I'm still rooting for Julia.
Right? It's like, well.
Yeah,
which one?
Talking about the darkness in the world, have you encountered it much where, you know, when Magicians first came out, a lot of people are just like, oh, it's like Harry Potter but adults, but then people watch it and they go, oh no, this is much darker and deeper. What kind of reaction are you getting from people now, now that they've actually seen how the show deals with dark subject matters?
You know, I think now what's beautiful is that we've set an expectation, which is beautiful because now we have to match it. But I think that through the first season, you know, people now know what to expect. You know what I mean? People aren't like, I don't think anyone's surprised that we went where we've gone anymore. You know, I think people are just like surprised what happens, but they're not surprised that we went there. But I'll be honest, I'm not somebody that's that clued into the reaction, because I follow like what hits me at Twitter, and that's it. I don't like to read the reviews. I don't like to. I don't really read anything about the show. So I'm not actually the best person to ask about that.
Well, I think it also kind of calls into what Lev Grossman was trying to do with The Magicians when he originally wrote it, which was kind of portrayed to be as like Harry Potter for adults. If the darkness of Harry Potter is about growing up, coming out of childhood into adulthood, but then I feel like The Magicians is about the darkness of adulthood, which is something that I think even as adults, we just don't ever really want to acknowledge these horrible things can happen.
I think these are stories about the same thing. It's coming into an adulthood. I just think that like Harry Potter is coming into adulthood in a very like fantasy idealistic world. You know what I mean? I don't think that, you know, an idealistic world where there's good versus evil. Like even our show presents a more good versus evil than, you know, Lev's books do at all.
Yeah.
Lev's books are really like just a bunch of flawed people that have, you know, you can find like, and that was why why I was so proud of us for going there and showing the pedophilia that Martin experienced, because it humanized the beast in a really important way to me as a storyteller, because it's not just about, oh, he's evil.
Yeah.
Right. And we will be doing the same with Reynard in some ways. And so to me, that's what's radical about Lev's books, is because he takes coming of age in a world, because look, you know, in the world of Harry Potter, you're like a mature adult by the age of 18. They get married like 6 years later. Like that's ludicrous in this time now. I mean, it's ludicrous. I think it's actually, I think it's just a more accurate and more realistic portrayal of the same story.
Yeah, I guess I had always, only because I've personally been going through that cross of the threshold from like someone in their 20s into their 30s, and I felt a shift. I felt like, okay, well, if Harry Potter, because I grew up with Harry Potter, if Harry Potter was talking about that shift from childhood, talking about preteen to teen and on, and only stopping there, so when you hit 20 you're pretty much done with Harry Potter, which was how it timed out for me, then I felt like The Magicians was more about that time after, where it is, because I feel like there's more than just those one stage of entering adulthood. It's that,
no, I agree,
going from that childhood into your 20s, and then going from your 20s into pretty much the rest of your life. It's kind of like they say your brain kind of like sets at what it's going to be at your late 20s. Like that's who you're going to be. So I feel like that's kind of, in terms of the darkness that it's dealt with.
My critique of Harry Potter is that they do 20 years of growth in 7 years.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Okay.
So that by the time you're 18, you're at where in the Magicians you are where you're like 33. Like Quentin doesn't mature until the age of 35, you know what I mean? And like the rest of the characters as well. Like that's the third book. Like that's where they are. You know, and we've just truncated that from like 23 to 30 or something. I don't know where we're going. I kind of forget what happens the rest of the season. But so yeah, I mean that's just, you know, it's a subtle thing that I think about with this show, the difference between Harry Potter and
Magicians.
Yeah.
And actually, the other thing, actually, I was going to say personally, when I was starting to read the book, it made sense, some of the behaviors that the show characters had, because I'm like, oh, they're technically teenagers in the book. They're like going into college area. But I felt that I liked that the show was them older, of them going more into grad school, because then me personally, I could relate to that more. And there's so many shows with like the young teenagers. So it's been kind of a breath of fresh air. The Magicians is kind of the young adult, but more like mid to late 20s, that there aren't tons of shows with that age range.
Because let's be honest, we're emotionally stunted in a real way as a society and as a world. So like, you know, 18-year-old behavior is still happening in your mid-20s. I mean, just walk around Murray Hill in New York, like walk around the Sunset Strip, like walk around any city, and you're seeing people in their mid-20s acting like, you know, what they did still when they're 17 and 18. Like there's a real arrested development in our world.
You're seeing people in their 40s. Yeah. You're seeing people in their 70s running the country.
Yeah, I mean, all right. Yeah, we're going to go down this path.
No comment.
But yeah, how is it playing then on a show where it does kind of showcase that other part of life compared to a show? I mean, you wouldn't necessarily be playing a 17-year-old, but you know, like, do you at this stage in your life that makes you sound so old. I'm sorry. Do you like playing like this age range of a show like these young adults versus like another show where they're like, oh, surprise, they're 15 and 16?
Well, yeah, because we get to deal with characters here. You know what I mean? So I want to play everyone. You know,
Yeah.
the fact that they're a flawed human. I just want to play humans. You know, and we get the opportunity on the show, and we as actors fight continually to make sure that happens, and the writers are very good at holding space for that with us. Is they're like that we want fully fleshed characters that are really like going through stuff and really have consequences. You know, I think that the risk with a show that has so much happening to it and has so much at a time is that the consequences don't play out. But we get to ensure that does, and the writers are conscious of that. So I would play a 15-year-old too, as long as it was a human, and not just like a cartoon. Like that's all I care about.
It's a good point. Too many shows take young people and make them just characters rather than like a multi-dimensional person that they are.
Yeah, and most shows are about plot and they're not about characters.
Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of characters and consequences, we kind of left off where, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, how you come in and you get to interact finally with Stella for the first time and grab Julia, and but then bring the beast to the fight, but Alice misses. But then when you go to drop Julia back off, she takes off the bracelets. Now, Adrian did have kind of a comment question last week about the bracelets. No, I thought it was a good question.
I wanted to know how you felt about the chains on your wrist.
How I felt
yeah.
about that.
Because I had weird reaction to it when I saw it happen. I was like, like I just kind of, I don't know.
Like a racially political way?
Yeah.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
If I can quote her, she kind of was saying it was a little bit genie-esque.
Yeah, it kind of just, I don't know, in a racially political way, it struck me in a certain type of way. And I just was curious as to how it struck you, but.
I thought that it was fun for Penny to address that very quickly from like a feels like I'm getting busted sort of way. I did not take it in a racially political way from that standpoint. I didn't think about it that way. But I can totally understand why someone could or would. But I think there's a huge difference in that once the ritual is over, which became a space of intimacy, and it became less about her tying me up than it became much more of like an S&M sort of thing than it did necessarily any sort of like power dynamic. Even though S&M has a power dynamic, obviously, but like there's a
a healthy aspect to the power dynamic.
Yeah, there was the power dynamic that you want.
Yeah.
You know. And then afterwards, I mean, the chains are not tied together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of like the big difference in that sort of situation for me.
Yeah. Actually, going back to the other episode, what was it like filming that pseudo S&M scene?
I mean, it was fun.
That's a good answer. Good answer.
Yep. I mean,
and then actually off of that, some people mentioned in the chat room, bring it up again. You've been rather shirtless and naked this season a bit. How has that been?
It's kind of par for the course for me on this show. It's kind of. I really don't know what to say about that. I mean, it's a good motivation to get to the gym.
Perfect.
But I did an interview once, and they were like, "Do you just like want to eat mac and cheese all the time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm shirtless on TV a fair amount, so no."
Yeah.
I don't eat that.
Well, you rock it well. The open vest and open shirts thing has been a good. It actually is a very fitting wardrobe for Penny, of like the kind of gypsy style that I think was talked about in season 1.
Well, I mean, that was like a big thing for. So I want to shout out to Magali Guidashi, who's our amazing costume designer, and her entire costume team, because. I mean, y'all haven't seen it yet, but the work they do with the creatures, and I mean, y'all saw it with the Knight of Crowns. I mean, that was an entirely made costume, and we're bringing in creatures from all over Fillory, and there are other worlds being introduced. And what these guys, what this amazing team has done is gonna blow your mind throughout the season. But that was one of the things. Everyone talks a lot about how different Penny is from from the books. And while I get that, you know, I really wanted to keep this essential truth of Penny, that he's like, you know, on the edge and, you know, kind of a fuck the man, authority hater kind of person, right? And so, you know, in the books he made, you know, Lev wrote that as a Mohawk dude with like like studded jacket, which, you know, in Lev's, you know, and I love Lev, in Lev's weird mind, that is edgy, you know, and he wrote it in a time when that was edgy, you know, like in the 90s, maybe that was edgy, but like nobody's really scared when a dude walking down the street with a Mohawk is. You're just kind of like, all right, what's up, dude? Like nobody's going to get scared by that. And so what is edgy at the moment? And it's that thing that you can't predict. Like androgyny is edgy, you know, like Gypsy kind of feel of like, what is this person going to do? And so that was an important thing that Mowgli, you know, brought, and then me and her have just kind of like built upon that.
Is it comfy wardrobe?
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, that's always good.
Yeah. No, I mean, but that's, I mean, everyone's wardrobe is super comfy. You know, I mean, they take care of us. I mean, everybody takes care of us. So that's never an issue.
That's always good to hear. So many actors have such interesting outfits at times that you're like, how comfortable is that to wear all day long?
Yeah, but if any actor is complaining about that shit, you can send them my way, because I'll be like, come on, man. You're working, and there's a warm-up coat for you while nobody's bringing a crew a coat, so you can take that shit away from my table.
That's true.
I was connected in a different kind of way, but doing something you don't really want to do. We have Elliot and Margot getting ready to go get their special juice for Ember for their re-up, but obviously it's not there, and that sucks. And Alice and Quentin go on and they have their emotional chat, which I was gonna say Joel would have wanted to jump in on that so much of their little bonding, and he's like, what's it like for Penny and for you, the actor, to see this relationship for Quentin and Alice going within the show and then watching the show?
Well, you know, so I mean, that relationship's really, you know, important. I mean, it's the spine of Quentin's story. You know, it's the spine of both of their stories. You know, they're so intertwined. You know, does Penny give a fuck? No.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's you know, at this moment, you know, the characters and the way they relate to each other and what that's shown, I mean, is really important. And because you see in relationship and in intimacy, you see different sides of people, you know. So Elliot with Margot, you know, see behind the mask. You know, Penny with Katie in the first season, you see behind the mask. Even to an extent, Penny with Quentin, you see behind the masks, but it's like you see behind the masks through their like over peacocking of the mask, you know. And then with Quentin and Alice, that's like probably the truest intimacy that we have on the show at this moment, you know. And so yeah, at this moment, you know, I mean, back in the season, you know, Penny and Katie were, you know, as intimate in some ways, and Elliot had Mike for some time, and but at this moment in the second season, you know, it's Quentin and Alice.
Actually, speaking of Penny and Katie, so Penny still holds some feelings for Katie that you can tell us about yet?
I mean, at this moment, I don't think Penny's got any feelings for anything. He's just trying to survive, legitimately. Like, there's no time to process, and that's another thing that's going on in this whole season, is that we're constantly in survival mode. So you have people that are not even emotionally mature, having no time to process, which would be a thing they wouldn't even know how to do to begin with. But time would help. You know, naturally, there's some process that happens when there's time. So it makes for good TV. Really, is what it makes for. Because you have people that have no clue what they're doing, completely no clue, and they're just making choices after choices, and they don't tend to be the healthiest.
Right.
But again, it's good for y'all. You know what I mean? It's gonna be good for y'all.
Yeah, I feel like that's just living, though. Like sometimes,
Sure.
Sometimes you have the time to process, but most of the time you're just going, and you know, if you get the chance.
Well, that is what I would say is part of why we are why we are facing such a dilemma of arrested development in our world at this time, because no one knows how to carve that time for themselves, you know, because no one's really facing the survival, like most of the people, and especially not the people that are listening to us right now.
No, not right now.
are facing the kind of survival things that where they can't carve half an hour a day to process. Like that's not reality, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know how to make that choice because we don't put that emphasis on self-care. We just don't, like, as a people.
Sure. Then we have a little bit more, and then the episode's all done. But we have the Ember.
Just a small thing happens next. Just a small thing.
Just a small thing.
Just a tiny
well,
little thing.
actually, leading into that, though, is we have the Ember and Martin scene, which was like a very fun, childish humor of the essential poop jokes of Defile the Wellspring. And I thought that was such a... I mean, the show's had all kinds of humor, but that was so fun and random, I thought. Wow. Was that funny for you to see?
I mean, Dominic Burgess is a fantastic actor, and I think he's a lovely Ember. But I think that's actually, it's really subversive. To me, it's really subversive, you know. And not to try to add too much depth to our show. Maybe it's not appropriate, but this is how I'd like to think about it. But you know, Ember is supposed to be the god, you know, and here he is making poop jokes. And that's like it's like the reality we live in. It's like, where are the mentors? Like, where are the guidance?
Where are the adults?
People? Yeah. Where are the adults? And you know, this is a world that like makes a point of talking about that there aren't, you know, whether that's accurate or not is irrelevant. It's like, that's the message the books try to make. And I'm hoping, but I'm in, you know, this is my interpretation of the scripts and the show that I'm on, is that, you know, Ember coming in and only being able to help by making a poop joke like that, and then you have these children that are left to fend for their lives. I mean, that's you know, it's funny, but I think it has, to me, it has a much deeper, you know, bent to it.
Yeah. Well, it was also, would you agree or disagree that it was what Ember could essentially do to, like, hurt Martin and fight against him, because he had, like, no defense at all. I felt that was just a little bit of a resistance of, like, well, this is how I'm going to totally screw with you.
Sure, but it's a completely childish.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm gonna throw, he's throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's still a god. Like, he still has power, you know? So I don't agree that I would place any nobility on him.
Okay.
And I also kind of felt like it kind of, if the Wellspring is supposed to be this powerful thing, and you defile it just to get back at, you know, one person who's pissed you off. I mean, there's a commentary to that as well, of just kind of like, well, I'm going to destroy everything to get back at this one thing. So that was kind of my feeling about it. It was funny mainly because of how the actors played it, but when you really think about it, then it's kind of like, oh, that's really messed up, because he's a god and he's supposed to be bigger than that, and he's actually, like, could potentially destroy all of magic because he decided to make a poop joke.
Someone in the chat room, though, asked if can Ember see the future, and then he played it like he set it all up, as if, like, Ember knew outcome of this.
Ember does not know the future.
Okay, I didn't think so. But I was wondering. Good answer. So then we have the epic, crazy battle, and Quentin getting injured trying to help Alice, and Alice misses the previous shot earlier and is trying to do it again. And they did have a Harry Potter reference, which was kind of fun, speaking of that. And with the Niffin bit, I wrote, holy shit. I was like, what?
Wait, what was the Harry Potter reference?
They have one line or something like that.
Elliot's sitting there and he's like, oh, this is totally Harry versus Voldemort part
Yes.
Book 7. Book 7. Yeah.
So it's just, it was a fun meta moment of like, hey, this other thing. Adrian, what do you think of the Niffin explosion / how that happened?
Sometimes previously on montages just
that was bad.
Right? They just mess things up, because then you go, oh, okay, now I know how this is gonna. So I wasn't surprised that she did Niffin out. I was surprised that she was able to have, like, somewhat of a control over the Niffining out and, like, return and finish off the beast.
Like, I did this on purpose.
Though I don't really think she did. But I enjoyed it, because I always enjoy any time a woman gets to have, like a super empowered moment. But I also felt really bad because that was a major sacrifice. And I guess to that extent, maybe it was done on purpose, understanding that, you know, she's going to have to sacrifice herself in order to save everyone else. Like, and not even just she's going to die. She's going to become, like, essentially the worst possible version of Alice to save everyone else.
Yeah, the ripping him open too, Martin with the moths coming out was such a cool visual. So tell us a little bit about that fight, Arjun.
I'll be honest, I wasn't there. I Penny's disappeared and some other.
Yeah, you're
getting Julia out of the way,
traveling all over the place.
He's got glitchy hands, but you know, again, you know, this is one where this is a team effort. John Scott and Ellie had a really brilliant plan on how you shoot something like that because it's really technical. This had stunts and VFX, and you know, there was makeup changes and there was costume changes for Alice when she turns in from this to that. You have, you know, blood, Jason. You have like everything that's involved. And then for, you know, I thought the performances were really lovely and really held the stakes, you know, so that we could ground that in the truth of it. And I think that, you know, it's a huge credit to everyone, and not me because I wasn't there. A huge credit to everyone, or some credit to me by not being there.
You know,
but that they were all able to do such a fantastic job. You know, I think that I thought all elements came to play to tell a really powerful story in that moment. You know, the music underneath I thought was really important. I thought Olivia did a great job with that scene, which is not an easy scene. I thought Jason did a fantastic job with his, you know, because we are him as an audience, and we get to react through him. And so I thought he held that very, you know, powerfully. And I thought, you know, Margot and Elliot were there to do their role. And then again, the technical side of things with doing, you know, John Scott, Ellie Smokin, and the entire cast, you know, entire crew, and VFX team.
Very cool. Any other final thoughts on the episode before we get towards the end? Adrian, Arjun?
Well, I'll let you guys go first.
Oh.
Well, what was your thought on the final?
I thought the battle was awesome. I don't think Alice is dead. Or at least she'll come back some other way. I mean, this is prediction, but not exactly. But I don't know if she knew necessarily she'd have to go full Niffin and explode in that way. But she might have, because she knew that her barometer thing was dying, so she might know that was the only way to win.
That was a potential consequence of.
Yeah, she's not stupid. So, and I thought having our Marina dead was like, that sucks. We can't have our triad of witches now.
No.
We had made the joke we want to see Katie, Marina, and Julia all together as a little coven.
The craft.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that will still happen.
Well, if Marina can come back from the dead too, but filler, I believe it could happen maybe in filler, but I don't know. But yeah, I thought this episode was very jam-packed, and that fight at the end was epic. And like all the other episodes, they end so it's not quite cliffhanger, but it's like, we're done? No, there's not more? Where's the next scene?
It's an abrupt end.
Yeah,
it's abrupt. But they're not.
Abrupt.
You're not quite like, oh my gosh, what happens? Like, I'm excited for next week, but I'm not freaking out.
I mean, I think that's a lot to digest. Because the last shot is Alice's body on the ground. And then, you know, so I think with that, and then with Marina and Reynard on the loose and the beast is dead, I think not being like, oh, what's going to happen next is okay. Because it's just a lot that happened in
process.
45 minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then that leaves you, Arjun. Any other thoughts on this episode, the process of it? I guess we don't.
This episode felt like we took the show to a new level from like the filming experience. You know, it felt like we all found a different groove. You know, the first and second episode we were all like loose and had come back in a way that was beautiful, but like, you know, now we were like, okay, this is a new space with the show, and you know, people have been talking about how strongly they felt about the first and second episode of this season. And I've been very frank with everyone I've talked to. The first and second episode are our weakest episodes. And so this starts, you know, the next episode, 4 and 5 are two of my favorite episodes of the whole season. And there's, it's, this is, you know, someone said this is like a mid-season finale. Someone tweeted that today, and in some ways it's like, oh, whoa, this is also like this almost feels like the shedding of the first season and moving into the second season.
Oh, I like that.
It's kind of like, you know, I think on television when a main character dies, that causes a shift in everyone, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that causes a shift, and also a kind of a maturity has to kind of fall into place from that.
Sure.
So I'm curious to see how Alice's death is going to kind of
it's going to push us
develop everyone. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that you're going to see people grappling with the emotional consequences of something like this, and again, you know, without the benefit of time or therapy. And so good luck. You know.
Oh man.
Well, we have to wrap up. I don't really have. Do you think Julia's dead?
Julia?
Not Julia. I'm sorry. Alice.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's go into predictions.
Like 2 predictions then, real fast. Do we have lights now?
We're not going. Oh, okay. So we're just going right into predictions.
Yeah.
I think Alice is dead, but I don't think she's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
I also think, you know, now it's going to kind of, I'm curious to see how it's going to affect everyone, but I also kind of want to see, you know, how Julie's going to deal with the death of Marina, and how it's going to drive her to go after Reynard even more so, or what she's going to do now that she doesn't have the beast. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are going to unfold from these 2 character deaths.
I was going to say, I kind of just echo that of, pretty much of that's what I want to see next. And
I don't think Alice is gone forever.
No, I don't think so either. I don't know how they'll bring her back, but there'll be something.
Yeah.
Arjun, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you let people know? Yes. Where can people follow you online?
They can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Arjun Gupta BK. That's ARJUN GUPTA BK for Brooklyn, not Burger King, idiots. Follow me there, and I'm available.
Cool. And if you guys are interested in any of the stuff that Arjun's up to, definitely go check out his Twitter account. He posts lots, and it's awesome.
Are you still doing the podcast?
I am still doing the podcast. Yeah, we're taking a bit of a breather as we rework what we want to do, kind of like a small little hiatus to come back, get the creative juices like fresh again, because we were putting out like stupid amount of content. And then my theater company, actually, if anyone's out in LA, we open our show March 4th at the New Collective. I'll have information on my Twitter.
Sweet. About that. Cool. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, guys.
Next time for season 3, you better come in the studio.
Okay, for sure.
So where can people find you online, Adrian?
They can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow.
And thank you so much for watching, guys. Give us 5 stars on iTunes, thumbs up on YouTube, comment down below, let us know what you thought of the episode. Tweet at Arjun, he's awesome. And thank you so much for joining us, Arjun. You guys can find me online at Kari D. Lane, that's KARIDLANE. And make sure to subscribe to AfterBuzz so you can be up to date on all these awesome shows. Again, comment, rate, subscribe. And we will see you next week. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.